The Ministry of Timelines bears no official responsibility for the content of this research. The Accords Council continues to surprise the Ministry. Their exclusive use of hard copies to store records is commendable, but does provide a challenge to our observation. Ministry field agents must be deployed to extract those documents. Additionally, the apparent lack of an HHH infestation in this timeline mandates further study. The first colony ship to be launched from Earth suffered a calamitous crash landing on reaching the planet far away, with no more than a dozen survivors out of thousands. In order to ensure the survival of the human race, drastic measures had to be taken. Kai's idea to eat the charred bodies of the dead was, however, rejected in favour of cloning. Despite being an entirely untested technology, a fully functional cloning lab was luckily found undamaged in the hideous scarred wreckage of the colony ship. Kai was volunteered to test the cloning process, and the first 1,000 clones dined like kings as they cleared the crash site. After about 150 faraway years, Faraway became a thriving civilization, a population of millions with the same dozen faces, every generation a clone of the previous. No longer human, but Hawaiian. Once again, they looked to space and returned to the stars in search of more like them, of more Hawaiians. The people of Faraway rejoiced in the mid-2201, when 5 warships of Strike Force humanity wandered into the Sol system. Could the stories be true? Had they found their long-lost home? Within 3 months, the Hawaiians made contact with the human race, and humanity discovered that the generational colony ship had been a success of sorts. It was unnerving for the Earth representatives to talk to 20 people that looked identical, until the tales were told of the ship's disastrous landing and how it had been overcome with cloning technology. Scientists were interested not only in the cloning process, but that the colony ship had achieved FTL travel. Whereas USR diplomat Comrade Woodmanhoff rather undiplomatically offered the Hawaiians video footage of natural human reproduction. The leaders of the other blocks said Woodmanhoff had already shown it to them, and there would be better examples available with more realistic plots. The Hawaiian ambassador was merely confused by the idea of natural reproduction, and showed a recording of the cloning process that detailed mechanical tendrils extracting eggs from the ovaries of restrained women clones, and the curious process of milking upside-down males. Woodmanhoff asked for a copy of the recording and was pointed to the studio that had made it, Hawaiian Entertainment Inc. H&I made it to the Earth. Completely oblivious to their precipitous cultural impact, the Hawaiians rejoiced when they finally met their Hawaiian brothers on Earth, even if none of them looked like literally everyone else they knew. The Accords, however, held little respect for the clones, especially for their overly artificial reproduction methods. The Accords colonized a number of close worlds by 2204. Each world remained under the impression they were the only human colony in space, as contact with the homeworld was entirely prohibited. The people of Earth were also kept in the dark, having no idea about the wider galaxy and the existence of aliens. They continued to toil on with their meaningless lives, producing greater capital wealth for their obviously superior overlords through a life of drudgery. But at least they now had H&I to watch in their free time. In early 2205, a faraway ship was intercepted, its crew butchered by horrifying aliens in the Shivo system. The last recorded transmission was little more than a garbled scream of pain and fear. First contact was then made with the Rempju Kemet in 2206. They seemed nice. A bit weird maybe, very enigmatic. Their name was a little hard to say though. They could maybe have thought about changing it for official documents. By 2207, the faraway colony had agreed to become a vassal of the Accords, acting as a bulwark to defend against the Xeno menace. They didn't really understand the implications of the new arrangement, and the Accord told their diplomats it was all positive. The Hawaiians sensibly used an odd man out strategy to help against such problems, but because of cloning, the odd man out was genetically identical to the rest of the diplomats and reported seeing nothing wrong with the deal. The people of Faraway, eager to become whole again, eagerly became a vassal. Those poor fools. The Lords of the Black Flags of Death initiated first contact in 2210. All was not rainbows, as perhaps their name suggested, and they delivered instead an ominous message to the combined governments of humanity, promising that death and doom was close at hand. Mere days later, the Lords declared war. These edgelords were weird. Really weird. Almost psychotic, with multiple personalities per individual, and all at the maturity of an edgy teen. But at least they kept their promises. In 2211, Mars agreed to share their technological insights with the rest of humanity, showing there really is no I in teen, but quite a few in technological insights. 3, I think. More first contacts in 2212. This time the Democratico-Clarans Republic of Zanmar and the Pru herd discovered to be sharing the galaxy. Both races were terrified of the humans, although this was not understood during the initial meetings, despite them screaming in fear in between panicked breaths. It didn't help that humanity's diplomatic envoys believed this to be their language and spent most of the time screaming back in their faces. They were sent some H&I as an apology. Offering no reason for their aggression, the Rempju Kemet declared war on the Accords in 2213 and proceeded straight for the Sol system. The mighty navy of Faraway engaged them in the Cupia system, and once the vampire forces were routed, they pushed on into Rempju Kemet's space. A year later, after intense negotiations and large reparations, the Accords agreed to peace with the vampires of Rempju Kemet with absolutely no exchange of territory. They didn't even agree to change their names. Remchem trips off the tongue, guys, just a suggestion. The Lords of the Black Flags of Death began a new offensive in 2218, breaking through the human defences at Nodro and heading for the home system. With their western fleets routed, humanity could do little but look on in fear as the Lords blazed a bloody trail of destruction. Allied human forces managed to retake the Rukla system in 2220, after several initial defeats. They did lose only a handful of ships in a grand pincer maneuver, as the Lords of the Black Flags of Death's fleet found themselves pinned against the Blue Star between a pair of corvette formations. This great human and Hawaiian victory tipped the balance of power, and the Lords then sued for peace. An uneasy ceasefire began. The long nights set in. The watchful peace. The Accords opened trading relations with the Rempju Kemet in 2222, if only to get a better name that was easier to pronounce than their full name. Referring to them as the REKE was better than nothing. In 2223, the Democratico-Clarans Republic of Zanmar, desperate for aid, reached out to the Accords and the faraway colony. Their war with the Lords, the massive edgelords that they are, was putting them at risk of genocide. The Accords ignored their pleas. Faraway offered to settle a few million Aclarans on a fresh world, to preserve their species, which the DORZ accepted. When the first refugee boat turned out to hold only members of the government and other stooges, Kai fired up the barbecue. Evidence emerged that the Kemet exploited human slaves to do most of the menial work in their empire. The Accords agreed that the Kemet had to pay reparations for this abhorrent use of human slaves. The Kemet, of course, used human slave labour to fund these reparations, and everyone was satisfied that justice had truly been served. On to 2226, and after a long speech about protecting the technologically inferior Xenos of the democratic Oclaran's Republic of Zanmar, the leader of Far Away declared war on the barely FTL-capable civilization, not because it was hard, but because it was easy. The war started with a liberation of the Myram system, which contained 3 planets and a small population of Oclarans, and then moved on to nowhere. The faraway military immediately halted their advance, simply claiming the system was necessary to preserve the Oclaran species and of key strategic interest in any future wars with the Lords. 2230. After a third leader of the Accords died under mysterious circumstances, Accord counterintelligence assets determined that Far Away operatives were behind all 3 of the deaths. Mars was very upset. Mors, however, was giggling like a schoolgirl. This is a very clever reference, you should look it up. Captain Jake Preston demanded that the Serene Prue herd give up control of the Crown of Thorns system and its planet Pepperidge Farm to the Far Away colony. He boldly stated in diplomatic channels that every single person on Pepperidge Farm will be protected, and if worst comes to worst, remembered. That is a guarantee. He also produced a poorly photocopied voucher offering 1 free Pepperidge Farm, and demanded it be redeemed according to the terms and conditions. When both of these positively Machiavellian tactics failed to move the Prue, they instead declared war. A war which turned into a grinding stalemate much faster than any of the Far Away generals could have predicted. The Lords sallied forth from their space in 2232, reigniting the war on humanity. With the Far Away and Accord's fleets spread across space and out of position, circumstances did not bode well for the human race. 1 year later, fleets comprising hundreds of corvettes converged on the Pathaban Vortex black hole, sparking a massive battle that endured for half the year, finally resulting in a Pyrrhic victory for the dastardly Xenos on the borders of human space. The Olcad system fell in 2234. The entire population of Tar was put to the sword in a monstrous and barbaric act by the Lords, igniting a fire in the administrations of Far Away and the Accords. They rushed to reclaim the planet and save what little survivors remained. While the Olcad offensive managed to reclaim the system for humanity by 2236, there followed a lengthy and brutal ground battle on the surface of Tar. As the dust settled, it became clear no humans had survived either the treatment of the Lords or the massive destruction inflicted by a long planetside campaign combined with orbital bombardment. 2237 marked the second battle of the Pathaban Vortex. The human fleets, combined from Sol and Olcad, annihilated the Lord's fleet and pushed forwards, retaking their lost territory. Luckily for humanity, half of the Lord's fleets were destroyed shortly before the battle by a massive tungsten shell flying through the system. Did I say massive? I meant the size of a moon, and not a small moon, more like a declassified planet. What the hell, man? 2239. With the war going well, Mars, the major lender in this conflict, called in their loans to the Accords, threatening to break the inter-system economy. Instead of needing it repaid immediately, Mars instead offered to waive the debt if they were granted a seat on the Accords Council. The Council, seeing through this obviously politically motivated move, refused. Hawaiian fleets reached the Lord's home system of Valin in 2240, where they launched an immediate invasion of the Lord's homeworld, Alanki. It fell within months, leading to the unconditional surrender of the Lords of the Black Flags of Death. Their nation was dissolved and placed under the control of the Accords. The Mars government in 2243 threatened to reveal the existence of the Accords and aliens to the people of Earth, in direct contradiction of the Accords' laws, as they weren't getting repaid their debt. The Accords responded by enforcing martial law and disbanding their government. The following year, Martian terrorists retaliated, assassinating leaders of the Accords, including some council members. The deaths were blamed on the faraway colony. Tensions rose. The Martians began to plan an attack on the main alloy foundries of Mars. 2245. The homeworlds of the Lords of the Black Flags of Death, the Remptuni Kemet, the Pru Herd, and the Oclarans were obliterated. In the aftermath, the Accords stepped in to provide aid and take over the function of civilian government for the starving colonies of their peoples. Survivors talked of having seen massive tungsten shells heading their way, and although we can be sure of the size, which I think I adequately conveyed earlier, surely they must have guessed at their metallic composition, which nevertheless was confirmed by samples of debris taken by scientists from what little rubber was left of the planets. That's pretty amazing, don't you think? If I saw a huge metallic shell about to destroy my homeworld, I doubt I'd be able to guess its atomic structure. I'd be too busy praying away my mortal sins and soiling my... Anyway, the Accords managed to reverse engineer wormhole travel. Utilizing a wormhole in the Tanari vortex, they were able to access and unlock a much larger galaxy. This concludes our analysis of humanity's first interspecies conflicts in this timeline. Please refer to the next chapter of this report for further details